everyone. Welcome to the second session of Guftagoo by InnoRenovate. Welcome all panel members. Dr. Sanjay Chaudhary, welcome Mr. Puneet Pandey, Mr. Nitin Pandey, Anvita Patnaik, Ms. Anvita Patnaik, and welcome to all of you who are joining in and listening to our discussion today. Today we are going to talk about challenges for graduates, challenges that graduates face, and how we can do our bit. Before beginning that discussion, I would like to introduce all our panel members for everyone. So first we have Dr. Sanjay Chaudhary. Dr. Sanjay Chaudhary is an educationalist. He is in the field of higher education for more than 15 years. He has held varied roles starting from professor to principal to now deputy registrar and the head of internal quality assessment cell of Maths University. Then we have Mr. Puneet Pandey. He is an HR professional and has more than 25 years of experience with different companies like HCL Technologies, JK Technosoft, Schneider Electric. He strongly believes in human asset consolidation and talent upskilling and has worked and led high capacity teams across India, Europe, Asia Pacific, and America. Currently, he is the head of global talent acquisition and capability building of UFLEX Group. Next, we have Mr. Nitin Pandey. Nitin is an industry veteran and also well-known name among HR leaders in India, with 25 years of experience across organizations like HCL Technologies, Nestle, and interning at InnoRenovate to gain more hands-on experience of HR. Lastly, I am Oindrila Kundu and I will be moderating today's session. I'm an HR professional and I am working with InnoRenovate on end-to-end employee experience, talent management, and strategic HR. So now let's begin today's discussion. Skill gap for freshers. This is a very frequently discussed topic, especially in recent times. So the gap that exists between fresh graduates who come out of educational institutions every year and what corporates and other real-time employers want to and look forward to hiring. There's this gap that is much talked about. But whenever these discussions come up, mostly somehow they are hijacked by technical companies, technical streams like BTech, and even professional degrees like say MBA and all. A lot less focus is given to a huge talent pool out there who do not fall into this stream, into these categories. And they are graduating in huge numbers every year. I'm talking about the streams like say pure science graduates, commerce, BCom graduates, humanities, social sciences, even languages. Yeah. So fresh graduates come out of these streams every year. Now these graduates, they have very limited career options. Either they have to go for higher studies, or else they have to think of going for government exams, which are as it is far too less as compared to the number of graduates that come out every year. And they have very less real-time job opportunities just after graduation. So today we want to focus the discussion on these groups of students and graduates and talk about their challenges and the skill gap and the various things associated with that. So Dr. Sanjay, my first question to you, do you think colleges are doing enough, and what all are colleges doing to help these graduates get a job right after graduation?
Good afternoon, everyone. Since after passing the course, the student move out in the field. in search of jobs. What the colleges are doing at this very last moment is that, as you know, that as private institutions, the onus of the appointment of the students is largely on the private colleges. But as far as government organizations are concerned, they are less bothered about all these things. What we can do prior to their passing out is that to provide them such a course curriculum which helps them to become what we say nowadays industry ready. Industry ready is a very catchy term in which we prepare the students and update our syllabus as per the requirements. What I can tell you in a better way about our own university is that we keep in touch with industries and corporate houses, and we keep taking feedback from them very frequently. This helps us to keep our syllabus up to date. And those students who are very alert and aware, they follow us very promptly and then they get placed. So what colleges can do or are doing is that they are updating their syllabus as per the changing syllabus. This employment market is very dynamic. It keeps changing day by day. Every day we will find something new, some new expertise, some new skill is required to the passing out students to get themselves placed. And this keeps missing. So the higher education institutions are updating their syllabus. They are making the students as much as they can industry ready so that the companies which are looking for candidates for placement, they don't have to waste their time and money on the training of these people. When we say training, it includes a lot of activities which varies from course to course. Like a student who is pursuing graduation or post graduation in language requires a different set of skills, while a student who is pursuing management course or engineering, they all require different set of skills. It depends upon the university or the college that how are they adopting. For those institutions that are college, they do not have the freedom of updating their syllabus. So what they do, they follow the course curriculum offered by the university which they are affiliated to, and then they provide them some extra additional courses in the name of skill development courses or value addition courses, and then they make their students ready. So these things are being done by the universities and colleges, and I hope that the students who are truly desirous of getting job are taking most of the advantage of these schemes and plans of these organizations.
Thank you, Dr. Sanjay. Mr. Puneet, my next question is for you. Do you think is there enough willingness, like are there enough positions to hire fresh graduates into corporates? You have been heading talent acquisition for many years, right? What's your opinion on this?
Again, when I say willingness, it's always about a give and a take kind of a model, right? And this model will vary from industry to industry, right? And willingness is also a direct factor of which business are you in, right? So are you in a business which has high returns, or are you in a business which has high volumes but lower returns, right? So and why I say that, so let's say if you pick up my industry today, so we are in flexible packaging. So anything that you eat in terms of food or anything which comes in a packet as is that outer packaging is done by us, right? Is it a very high margin business? No, it is not a very high margin business. But yes, our sustainability gets defined by the more we produce and the more the market consumes, right? So as adoption of people in terms of training them will be a direct factor because it involves time, money, and effort, right? Going by my previous example of the IT industry, right? So if you look at IT industry today also, suddenly the demand has again gone up, right? So while COVID almost last year was a pandemic, but I think for the IT industry, it's provided a boom, right? Companies who were not hiring almost a year ago and were looking at retrenchments today are struggling to find the right talent or the right people, right? So cutting that short, I think the willingness is always there, right? But as Dr. Saab also pointed out, right? Today, I think the bigger challenge is that the universities, if you look at it, are bound by guidelines from the university itself in terms of curriculum, which may not be apt in terms of where the industry is going, right? And even if you look at it from a non-tech graduate's perspective, right? We are fortunate that in today's era, there are a lot many opportunities which are available for person who's willing to adopt, who's willing to learn, and willing to do that extra bit. Because a normal BSc or a BCom or a BA may not take you anywhere for that sake, right? As long as if you're good in communication, yes, there are n number of customer support roles that you can apply for, right? If you have good language skills, again, there are n number of avenues wherein you can apply in terms of support roles which are available for bilingual, multilingual, even foreign language support, etc., right? But then I think the first step is that willingness to come in from the candidate itself or the student itself, saying that yes, while from a qualification perspective, what I get taught in the university or a college will give me a graduation certificate. But for me also to be able to be job ready, there's a lot of effort that I also have to do from my end in terms of what I want to do also. So I think taking a step back, I think the colleges should also look at ways and mediums by which they could profile the students, right? So not everyone is made to do every kind of a job, right? And all of you are HR professionals, right? We do skill profiling, we do candidate profiling, right? So we know that there are certain traits that are mandatory for a person to go in sales. Similarly, there are certain traits that are mandatory for a person to go in any other job role, right? So I think if that identification can also be somewhere built at the graduation stage, and then the candidates are also counseled to take the right career path, I think that will also help us. Our second challenge is while people are graduated, right, they typically get graduated based on their 12th passing marks. So if I score high, I get BSc. If I score relatively low, I get BCom, and then last is BA or vice versa, right? So it's not usually what the capability or the skill of that child is, and that education is given that way, right? I'll give you another example. So, and I've seen that trend change in the past 2.5, 3 years, specifically within manufacturing, right? Since I'm out of IT, I don't know how much of that is still on or not, but specific internships have really helped the college students. One is to get an exposure of how a real world environment is, how a real work environment is. And also it gives an exposure to the students in terms of really knowing what I am good at. So like we pick up a lot of students from various streams in terms of manufacturing, production, logistics, supply chain, etc., and give them internships for about 4 weeks to 6 weeks, right? So the advantage is both ways. I, as an organization, kind of get a trial on the candidate before I finally decide to onboard or not onboard him or her. The candidate gets an exposure and also gets to know how the industry is, right? And there are a lot of soft factors that the candidate sees. See, for any student, job or the world outside looks very beautiful, right? Because you feel that you will be independent, you'll be earning, you'll be doing all number of things, right? And then specifically the social media gives you a very different perspective. But when you actually face the real world, things are very, very different. So adaptability, adjustability, and soft factors in terms of working along with people, no job is low, right? How do you deal with stress? How do you deal with pressure? How do you deal with prolonged working hours, etc., etc.? They get a real life exposure in terms of doing internships. So I think that method helps both of us, the industry as well as the students.
So one focus point that I get out of this is you're talking about internships being a big bridge for this gap, and another is like skill development when apart from like what the degree is, specific skill development depending on their suitabilities, capabilities, and their profiles.
Absolutely. Right. I'll give you a very typical example, right? So last one year, when we talk about specifically industry, right? Logistics or supply chain used to be a very smaller segment in terms of job requirements, right? Last 1 year, primarily because of a lot of people working from home, the demand growing up, right? suddenly the need for distribution, supply chain, and logistics has gone up so high that there are no people available to them. Right. So I think what is also more important is to be ready and see that is there a short-term course that I can kind of do a capsule of 4 weeks, 6 weeks, so that I'm clear on the basics, right? And then at least I have an edge over another person who at least does not even know the theories of the role. So I know the theories. Yes, I'm ready to slog out, I'm ready to work, and at least I know the concepts. So I can be given a chance. So you stand a better chance in terms of getting a job as compared to a person who doesn't even understand what supply chain is. I hope I'm able to articulate that well.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Puneet. Mr. Nitin, I have a question for you, the similar question. What is your view on this gap that exists? Like colleges, they are trying to update their curriculum as much as possible. They are bound by certain restrictions. As Dr. Sanjay said, many are providing certain extra skill courses. And then as Mr. Puneet also mentioned, like for organizations also, it becomes difficult to, hire students who are not industry ready. Communication skills are gapping, skills gap are there, and also then there are limited roles, either a customer support or something to do with voice processing, or maybe logistics, where typical roles are technological or say managerial roles are not required. What is your thought on this? Like, what is this gap, and like how can we address this gap better?
So, Dr. Sanjay pointed out to the curriculum, a willingness to review the curriculum. Although my experience does suggest that education institutes have two. So their primary business model, if I have to call it, is how to get more admissions, right? And that's how they earn their revenue. And I'm not talking about NGOs and non-for-profit colleges, but otherwise private universities would go for that, and for which they have to have a better show in terms of how the quality of education is, which translates into job opportunities for the students, which in further attracts the students again for applying for that particular university or course. Industry, on the other hand, has a primary motive of absolutely profit-driven thing, and they need to see how they get the best talent in the least possible cost. And so there is a merger of, I would say, the objectives. And the problem is, while we have this continuous, we have the similar kind of objective of making profit, and there is a talent in between. The problem is, most of the times the corporates and the education institutes, because one, there are too many corporates, and two, there are too many institutes as well. And in between there are students. The thought process or a body to identify these gaps and try to make some sincere efforts in bridging it doesn't happen. Now it happens by some universities will do it. They will target some companies. They will allow the companies to run some courses sometimes, bridge courses, and or the corporates will do some internships and bridge courses, etc. Like IT industry does it very well, by the way. So they have tied up with colleges because they know that these are the colleges where we will get some course within the college, or when they come here to join us, and they try to make their talent as ready as possible for the requirements of a job. This does not happen too much with the other sectors. For example, banking does it to some extent. They do try to have their own academies run there in the colleges, specifically for students to get, but these are far and very, very less, I would say. As a process, I think the new education policy is in a step in the right direction, where it is talking about why to do such, the course combination, for example, is not necessarily you have this stream or that stream. Now the students have a choice of making electives and courses, and the universities can provide, or the colleges can provide those things. The gap exists. There has to be a considerable effort from industry and the education institute. Now, a very interesting piece is this. This is a technology-led industrial revolution 4.0. We are talking about breakthrough in technology almost, every 6 months you'll see a new thing, and we're already talking about so many new things which are going to come up. The pace with which the technology comes in and reviews it or changes, and then if you compare it with the adoption of that technology-led life, or so if you see in one curve where the technology changes in the time frame, and this next curve would be how quickly the adoption happens. So the second graph would be adoption is fastest after the technology adoption, which is they change very fast. The next is the people themselves, general public or people like you and me. If there is some new phenomena which comes in, people will fall, quickly into that. And it's a clubhouse these days in social media, or it is, Bitcoin through cryptocurrency, and because of blockchain, people will adopt it much faster. And then comes the third laggard, which is after people adopt it. The next is the corporates. They adopt it after that. After individuals adopt it, the corporates will adopt it even later. The pace of change is slower. After that, you come into education institutes to adopt the same technology changes and make that part of the curriculum or part of the education profile and preparing talent. It is after all these things. So first the technology, then corporates adopt it, then education institute, and last comes the government. Now, with such a gap, and by the time the wheel moves, the new technology would have come, and everything just becomes a chaotic situation. So that's a problem we are facing today. While students are willing to adopt, education institutes take a little back seat because there is a typical change process which is required. Corporates are wait and watch, but they do it a little faster, and the government norms comes in a little late. So that's the problem of all the current situation that we are in. We have talent, and there is a gap, and there are efforts which are made in bits and pieces by either the government, by skilling industry, which has been put in place across the world. Every country has a skilling gap arrangement right now. And then, of course, the other factor which students are, they sometimes, the pace with the change is required and fast self-paced learning is not there in the students also. So that's a gap. So I think the environment has to be very clearly, first at the student, are you ready? What can you do to make yourself more employable? For which they have to study what is happening in the world. They have to keep abreast with the changes, and whether the college is providing them that input or not, they have to still get it, either through other means. And that's how students should do it. Corporate should do it similarly, and work with the institute to work to make this bridging as much as possible. Now, I understand Dr. Sanjay also said about how talking to the industries, they keep on reviewing their courses, which is a very good step. Not many universities do that very regularly and very sincerely, because their main motive remains selling of the seats. And I'm not talking about your university, I'm just talking in general. But that's the main motive. So sometimes the tick in the box happens. The real purpose is not solved. So there has to be a combined effort with all these three boxes: industry, corporates, and the students playing a bigger role in this, in my opinion. Sorry, I hope I answered your question.
Yes, you did. From there, I have a question that I want to ask you to answer, and then I'll ask the same question to Dr. Sanjay as well. That is, if we are saying that when new technological changes come and educational institutes are adopting much later, like by the time corporates have already adopted and jobs are there, and hence the students are also, lagging behind. They are not being able to fill in those shoes where the jobs are there and those technological changes are required. So how can we speed up this process faster? So Mr. Nitin, I'm asking you, like, what can you think? What do you think? How can we speed up this process? And to Dr. Sanjay, I'll be asking the same question along with like the administrative challenges that educational institutions face, and how can like administrative challenge, you say the resistance, how can all of these be broken to actually, keep up pace with these changes at a much faster rate?
So by simple example, let's take blockchain. If you think that blockchain is going to change the world in financial sector to a great extent, the technology was invented, and it was invented through or discovered through a cryptocurrency route, and then they talked about how the safe, secured mechanism can work. And obviously, when banking industry realized this could be a way out for secure, they tried to adopt it. There were only few people who could who know about that subject, right? So that's the technologists or the people who discovered it. By the time it flows down to the education institutes, it's faster in corporate because they have a business to run, so they will do it quickly. Hire people or get their technology from outside, acquire a few companies who are doing it to get, if they want to be in this business of let's say blockchain, so they'll do it faster. And after a period of 5 years, 7 years of churning of this technology, is the time when the education institutes will have the talent and have the capability to teach it as a process in the, because they will want to do it, but they will initially they will only be able to give some ideas about how, and that's where the bridge courses between, let's say, the online courses on technology courses, tie-ups which the education institutes can work on. That I do not have this capability to teach students this, but I can tie up with some other university which is teaching it, or have fast, or even the industry, to have industry professionals come to the and have a course, specific certification course around this, which is what some companies do. But as I said, it's still not there in all places. So that's the only way to do it is some of them will do it. Is a faster adoption. Some institutes do it very fast. It's not that they don't do it. As a regular process, it's a big process. It's a churning process. It will take some time to do it. It's a Suez Canal discussion that is having today. The ship is out there in the middle for 2 days now, 3 days, and we don't have a solution still. And so by the time the ship moves, the world would have lost billions of dollars in business already. That's how it happens in this sector as well.
Dr. Sanjay, what is your take on this? What are the resistances and challenges, maybe administrative, keeping up pace, the changes? What are the various resistances that educational institutions face when trying to update to what the real-time job talent and job skilling requires, like incorporating that with their entire curriculum and how they are releasing the students out, like this entire approach? What are the resistances that educational institutions face while trying to reach there at a much faster pace?
As Mr. Nitin has pointed out very clearly, that this is a rapidly changing world where the things are changing so rapidly that if you do not keep a tap on the thing, then it will disappear. And being a private university, we are at liberty of changing our syllabus granted to us by the government. And we do that at a very fast pace. And to keep a tab on the same, I must tell that we have a very strong alumni base that keeps us informed that what changes are taking place in the job market. Now, the problems, as you said, suppose an entirely new thing is introduced, then what we find is that if we are not able to incorporate it immediately into the regular syllabus, then we try to offer it in skill development or value addition programs. But since the thing is new, it is not conventional, it is very hard to find an appropriate or a suitable person to teach that thing. Because for teaching anything, you require a teacher. And the absence of teacher, particularly, I can say this because we are in Chhattisgarh, one of the backward states of our country, where the talent, though it is not, there is no such great dearth of talent tied up, because though we are willing to teach the new things, we are trying to teach the new things, but we are falling short of getting the right person. We fully understand that there is no point in pursuing the obsolete, but still, if you want to go for something new, then you need to have the appropriate person. Because unless you cater to the needs of the students, because the student is very smart, they immediately understand that who is coming to teach them and what they are going to be taught.
Yeah.
And once they realize that what we are offering them is not suitable for them, then it becomes very hard to keep their interest intact in the same subject or on the same thing. Why it so happens? Because the students take some time actually to realize that what we are trying to impress upon them is for their own benefit. So basic problem is, and then the literature, availability of literature, although it's an online world, everything is available on internet, but still you cannot depend fully on the internet. You need to have some hard copies in your hand to pursue or to follow what you are trying to do. So these are few. As far as changing of syllabus or updating, not changing. Changing is not the appropriate word. Updating the syllabus is concerned, we are very comfortable with that, and we do it almost every year. Although it so happens that if we are updating the syllabus of a 3-year course, then it will apply only to those students who are taking admission in that particular year, and it will take 3 years time for them to pass out. It might happen that that thing has become obsolete, or that thing what we are trying to what we have taught them might become obsolete by the time they become a graduate.
Thank you, Dr. Sanjay. Very well pointed out about the challenge, like you wanting to teach but not getting the right faculty and the teachers for the new challenge, for the new technologies and everything that is coming up. Mr. Puneet, my next question to you is the same thread that Dr. Sanjay said. So IT organizations and the IT sector, they are doing a great job of, like Mr. Nitin said, of tying up with institutes and, turning the graduates into more employable freshers who can be readily taken up. The same things are done by a few other industries like the banking sector. What more can corporates and organizations do to actually provide this, to create more such programs, providing industry veterans to go and teach? Like Dr. Sanjay is saying, many institutes, they want that students should get to know about the new technologies, the upcoming changes that are coming, but there's a difficulty, there's a gap in who is going to come and teach. Now the corporate professionals who are actually working on these, they can, if they go and play a part, at least some of them, a group of them, go and play a part in actually imparting that knowledge to the students who are graduating. Like, how can this be done? Why is it not being done? And how can we actually go ahead and do more such things?
See, I think what is more important is, again, the willingness from an individual to go and impart knowledge or share knowledge, right? So forget about going and teaching somewhere else. People are even little hesitant in terms of imparting that knowledge within the organizations, right, to their colleagues or to their reportees, right? So I think one is obviously the willingness. Second is, see, I may be too good at my work, right? But how best I am able to translate that and make the other person understand how to do that work, no, not everyone will have that characteristics. Or so I think as a step, what corporates are also doing is in terms of personality development for their internal colleagues and employees, plus tying up with institutes. So like we also have a tie-up with a lot of institutes wherein we now push our people to go and take guest lectures. So specific subjects, right? So I'll give an example. We are a hardcore manufacturing organization, 24/7 operations. Our machines don't stop, right? So it is critical, right? So let's say when we pick up people or candidates from BE mechanical or a mechanical ITI or a diploma, right? So we have our maintenance staff who goes there, gives them real-time examples, right? So I think that correlation helps. While on one part theory is being explained in colleges, and how does that theory really apply in a real world? These examples given by industrial people in terms of guest lectures help student absorb and assimilate it much better and understand the concepts much better. I think that's one thing which can be a good initiative in terms of making sure that we give our contribution as industry people to bridge in that gap of expecting that the students will be knowing anything and everything. Second is, I think, what also misses out a lot of times is, and since me and Nitin have done a lot of campuses together also, I think as a student or as a fresher, the person or the student is also very curious in terms of a feedback or what did he miss out in terms of either answering a question, things like that. I think, and the same logic applies to job scenarios also. I think while I may not like a candidate, if I spend that another 2 minutes in terms of briefing him, saying that, hey, you got these two, which are your positives, work on these two, which are not so positive. And I'm sure next time you will crack an interview or you will crack a job posting anywhere else. I think that sharing and that feedback sessions will also help us partially to bridge the gap. And again, as I said, you'll have to be ready and keep identifying people. So as I said, again, COVID has taught us a lot of other things, right? So within COVID, see, our plants did not shut down even for a day. In fact, our production was almost 180% of what we used to produce purely because of the demand, right? And that is where, in terms of crisis, you experiment, you take risks, right? And you are ready for the consequences also. So I had people who were maybe not even trained to handle a machine, right? Since we were short of staff, we gave these people to go and give them the opportunity to go and man the machines, right? With a lot of supervision, right? And that model proved right because in few days, the person was able to independently handle that machine. Wherein if I would have gone the traditional route of looking at his resume and expertise, I may not have selected him, right? But then the bigger question here is the risk was huge, right? And how frequently can you take that risk, right? So just to again further build up on this model, right? And again, a suggestion by our chairman, which has come up, and we are working in HR on that is, so what we do is we produce the plastic film on a big, larger scale, right? So our chairman has suggested that why don't we look at a machine supplier who could give us a stripped down version of the same scenario. So let's say a 1:10 kind of a ratio, right? And we install that smaller machine maybe at our premises or tie up with the college who would help us installing that machine at their premises, right? So that is the where the students get a real-time exposure also in terms of running that environment on a smaller scale. It helps you build up. So you will have to come up with something or the other which will help you kind of be ready for skill in terms of skill demands for the next 2 years, right? So I think one is gone are the days wherein you teach something today and it will be relevant for the next 5 years, right? I'm not sure sitting in March, you have another COVID or you have another pandemic, what will happen? No one knows, right? So I think that uncertainty will help us adopt a lot of models which are very short term and a medium term. A long term strategy in terms of either skilling, I am not very sure it will work as of now. Blockchain, yes, longer or IT, etc., are all long-term strategies. But today, if you look at it, IT also is facing the same challenge. I was speaking to one of my colleagues, the division which me and Nitin were working for at one point of time. They have close to 13,000 requirements open as on today. Right, so that's a kind of gap that they have even for trained manpower. It's not available. What do you do?
Thank you, Mr. Puneet. Anvita, I have my next question for you. You being a student, your journey, you completed your BCom, right? After that, you decided to pursue an MCom. And after that also, you decided to pursue an MBA. In these the segments in between, what were the thought processes or difficulties that you faced that prompted you to go to the next level and maybe not get a job in between? Can you just share your journey with us a bit?
Yeah. Till I have completed my BCom, I have no idea how the industry works. I have no field idea. I have no theoretical idea. So after my BCom, there were not so many opportunities for me. There were very few opportunities for me, and that too are not up to the mark. And so I decided to do a master's in the same field, because doing a master in a different field is not going to work for me. So I have
Let me just
decided
stop
to
you,
do
Anvita.
masters.
Let me just
Yeah.
interrupt you for one moment. So after BCom, you said you were getting some opportunities, but they were not suitable. Why were they not suitable? Like, were they paying less, or also were you not up to date with certain skills that they were wanting?
Yeah, the main thing is the skill set which they are wanting from me are not up to the mark, and I'm not
Elaborate
yet.
a bit on like what were some of those skill sets?
Yeah, the skill sets are, some of the skill sets are like Tally, then MS Excel, MS PowerPoint. So being a commerce student, yes, I know I should be, inheriting all those skills. But till my graduation is completed, I have not done any of those skills. I have not worked on any of those skills. So for that lacking, I enrolled for my post graduation, that is MCom. So post graduating in the same field works for me, because till BCom I was not well prepared to even talk in front of like 10 peoples. I have a very stage fear. So after pursuing my MCom, so I have worked on that skill. So there is a constant presentation in my college. So that that will help. That helps me really well. And after my PG, I was very well aware of some of my strengths and weaknesses. I will not say that all the way strengths and weaknesses, but yes, I have recognized some of my strengths, that in which field I can be good, or in which field I cannot turn to a field like finance, because I don't have much experience, I don't have much knowledge about finance, and I don't have much interest in finance. So that's all the things which turned to me to enroll for my MBA. So being in the MBA, for in my first semester, we were clearly told that you are not at all corporate ready, or what to be specific, we are not at all office ready. So we are not up to the mark, and I am I will totally agree with Dr. Sanjay sir, what he has told, that colleges are making their efforts, and colleges are arranging to develop the skills, and to develop the extra skills which the students are not possessing. But yes, students are not willing to learn those skills, because many students are not interested. In my MBA, in my first semester, my college has arranged a personality development once in a week seminar sort of thing. So they have arranged this because they feel that students are lacking these skills. See how to walk into an interview, and how to how to give an interview. So my college has arranged it, but the result was not up to the mark. The students are not attending the lectures, the students are absent in most of the lectures. So colleges are making their efforts, but it is the willingness, totally depends upon the willingness of the student, that how student is willing, and how much student are going to accept those skills which colleges are providing them. So I think that is where students are lacking, because they are not willing to learn new things, and they are only concentrating on their theoretical knowledge. They are not accepting the field knowledge, or the practical knowledge which colleges are providing them. So that's my side of story, like being a
Thank you,
student
Anvita.
side. Yeah.
Sorry, I got disconnected in between. Uh, so, Anvita, I missed the latter part of your story. Uh, so the initial part, that one or two things that I picked up was some of the things that you got better in your post graduation, both through MCom and MBA. If those skills, like say more of Excel, more of presentations during examinations, if these would have been more in your graduation, it might have helped you and many more students like you.
Yes.
Am I right in assuming
Yes,
that?
definitely, yes.
So my next question for
Sorry to interrupt, but
please go
I
ahead.
think the main point which is coming out also is how much the willingness on each
Each
body.
of these boxes.
Yes, so that's very important. Sorry, Andrila, go ahead.
Second, I just also wanted to add on, Anvita, you only pointed out, right, that whatever you were getting were not up to expectations, right? So I think that is somewhere that also has to be further streamlined, right? So because while it is good to have expectations, right, but even as students or people who are graduating, we have to also understand that there is an ocean of talent available outside also, right? So for you to stand out, right, you either have to raise your hand, shout out loud, or do something or the other which kind of differentiates you from the crowd, right? See, while we are talking all this, let's try and reverse the roles, right? Let's talk about buying behavior for that sake, or let's talk about, let's say, recruiting or hiring a driver or a maid in our houses, right? Would you be willing to take that risk of hiring someone who does not even understand how to cook, or who's a plumber and hiring her for a cook? We would not, right? But we would be comfortable if my cook tells me that I am getting an additional help. I will train her for 1 month and then she will take over, right? So the same analogy works for corporates also, right? It's just that the risk is a little bigger.
Yeah.
And maybe in your case, Anvita,
driver has more risk. I mean, you can't just
absolutely
be very sure that the driver is trained.
Yeah, your case, Anvita, specifically MCOM, BCom, right? And then you've ruled out banking all together, right? But if I look at it from a fitment perspective, MCOM, BCom, banking is the most ripe sector for you to kind of get an opportunity. Okay, you don't have the aptitude, agreed, right? You still would be at least liking maths to a little bit, right? 3 weeks online refresher course on Excel gives you enough to qualify for an entry-level job in any sector.
Yeah, Puneet, but the point is who guides this? There's not enough bodies.
That's what I pointed out, Nitin. And yes. I'm only picking up discussion from the thread that she knew after her graduation that these are the 3 things which will help her perform better, right? But I'm just trying to correlate that spending another 2 years in MCOM and then you look back, and then again 2 more years in MBA and then you look back, right? Where is going to take you again?
Yeah, that's your point. And this is a problem probably with because the while she's saying now that Excel, etc. But in my opinion, a lot of students are not even aware of what to do and what are the gaps, and that
I think she's more aware when in hindsight, like standing here, she's more aware. Yeah.
And that remains a bigger gap in terms of while the intent is, I think, looks to be everywhere. Intent from the institutes is there, intent from the colleges are there, but how to make it a part of our day-to-day life, that this fixing blocks, I think that is where the challenge. Yeah, Andrila, sorry.
Yes. No. So a very good discussion. So like Mr. Nitin said that we are hearing from Dr. Sanjay, there's a lot of willingness and willingness from institutes as well. Like they are wanting to update and become, wanting to incorporate guest lectures, wanting to take the students more ahead. Even corporates want to hire, provided they get more freshers with skills. New programs are coming, like Mr. Puneet mentioned in his organization. They are trying to do such similar models in a smaller scale with tying up with educational institutions. And like Anvita also said, students are also willing. They want to know, and the willingness has to increase as well. So all these 3 boxes have to be tied up well so that we can, ensure that the graduates that are coming out every year are much better prepared for the job world and can actually get more chances, just like other degrees and technical degrees and other professional degrees do. So there's a lot for all of us to do. I'm sure we all agree, like all these boxes that Mr. Nitin is talking about, all these boxes, we all have important roles to play. And I feel we should just gear up and go ahead.
Yeah.
Anything else anyone would like to add?
I think the adventure program and Puneet and Dr. Sanjay, I probably just because taking it from Unrela there, we are launching this program, Adventure. And, while it tries to still solve the defined problem is defined that there is a coordination issue between these three boxes. When I say they have to, like a gearbox, they have to gel very well. So everybody knows this problem. What we are in Adventure, through Adventure, what we are trying to see is how to apply the grease and be the grease and making it a little more smoother, and taking corporates and institutes together one by one and try to de-skill some of the jobs to get more opportunities for the freshers, and how to, when the corporates may agree to de-skill, how to provide the environment through colleges to fill that gap, etc. So I think that grease role is what we are trying to do through this program.
There is one topic which I didn't want to poke actually, but since Anvita mentioned it and she's here, what she said about learning the skills that the colleges are trying to teach to their students. We can take the horse to the water, but cannot make it drink.
Yeah,
This is what we are thinking right now. As Anvita said, it is really very hard to make the students understand, as I told earlier also, to what we are trying to teach them is actually for their benefit. Most
Right.
of the time, what it so happens that the students, once they pass out from the institution, and then later they come back and they tell, sir, you were telling right, sir. We should have listened to you at that time. But by the time has gone. So Anvita, my best of luck to you. But as sir suggested you should be focused in order to make your career dynamic more. Don't make it volatile. Be fixed to some particular aspect and then pursue it steadfastly.
Oh no, she's now right in the right place. She's in HR. She's doing well. I think she.
Okay, I thought she has joined as a student with her queries. That's it.
She is still a student. She is still pursuing her MBA. So she is still technically a student.
She's interning with us. So I think we will. She's in the right place.
Any parting words from you, Mr. Puneet?
Well, always a pleasure interacting and seeing Nitin and hearing Professor Saab and seeing some fresh blood, fresh interns and understanding their thoughts. More than happy to contribute my little bit of knowledge and experience that I have gained anytime, and let me know if I can be of any assistance to any one of you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Sanjay. Thank you, Mr. Puneet, Mr. Nitin, Anvita. It has been a great discussion and an
Thank you.
insightful one.
Pleasure.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.